Welcome back to R2tv, your favorite location to learn from Radare. Today we will talk about R2pm, which is the package manager for Radare. And the package manager basically introduces you the ability to install and manage the plugins and other tools that are integrated with the toolchain. We will start into the source directory of the repo, which is the place that we can check all the tool implementations. And we have a couple of directories that can be interesting for us. The first one is libmain. Libmain contains the r2pm.c, which implements the libmain function. So this function is executed from biner r2pm.c. This basically creates a binary that calls the libmain to initialize this tool. The magic for libmain is that we can create a blob build, which is kind of like a single binary that have all the functions and all the tools from all inside Radare. So you can have like a single binary, like in BasicBox, symlink with different executable names and get different toolings depending on the argv0. Okay, so that was kind of boilerplate. So we can also check the man page from R2pm. R2pm have different command line flags that can be useful to install packages, search for the database, update the database, and install packages, etc. By default, it's important to know that if you don't specify anything, it will be installing everything inside your home. So it won't be messing your system directories. And if you want to do something global, you will need to use the -g flag. That's kind of like a mimic from npm, which installs everything inside the current directory. But if you use -g, it will install that system-wide. This is not recommended use because by default, every user should be having their own set of plugins and dependencies and tools. So it's better to just use -i directly or -u instead of doing everything global. So let's summarize the main command line flags, or the most important ones. So probably the first one that you need to learn is -u. This flag updates the whole database. It will be downloading a Git repository and cloning that into your home. This repository contains a directory with all the package descriptions. Then if we do that, we'll be pulling that directory, and you can see that there is like an info message that points us to the directory that the repo is cloned. So let's go there. We can ls, and we see that there is like different directories, and this is the actual git root directory. We have linting and cell, and then the readme, which is actually the place. So you can actually check where is this coming from, and as you see, the URL is radare2-pm. You must clone this repo and add a new file inside the db directory, because you can see that there is the db folder that contains all the package descriptions. All these package descriptions are just plain text files that are loaded inside R2pm and allows you to install, and search for packages. So for example, let's try R2pm -s to search for some specific stuff. So let's say R2pipe. If we use R2pm -s, it will be loading all the packages in the R2pm directory and filtering by package name and description all the ones that are matching this specific text that you type. So let's say, for example, we want to search for R0, which is the oldest implementation of Radare. So you know that there is radare2, there was also radare1, and actually there was something way before radare1, which was called R0. R0 is very minimalistic implementation of an hexadecimal editor, so it's kind of like less than 500 lines, and that's following the Saglus philosophy. So in order to install that, I will recommend you to use -ci. The C in the command line option implies cleaning, and I is the install. So the clean install means that it will be making a clean clone of the repository or the zip file that is associated with the package, and then install the package. So let's see what happens there. See that it's cloning, running some stuff, and then copying the files. Okay, so let's see how this package is described. You can see that this package, we can also set the file type to shell if you like some coloring. This implementation of R2pm was initially written in shell script, but for portability reasons, it was written in C. But it's following the same shell style syntax. We have an R2pm begin header and R2pm end at the end, which is a footer, which describes that this is the beginning and the end of this package. If R2pm is loading a file that doesn't contain this header, it will be ignoring that. So it will be loading or parsing anything from it. So let's continue with the rest of the fields. So we have r2pm git desk, r2pm install, and uninstall functions. So the git specifies the path to the URL that needs to be cloned, and the desk contains the description of the package. Then we have a couple of functions, and one for installing and one for uninstalling. So now we can, for example, use r2pm-l, and that will be enumerating all the plugins that are installed. We see that there is r0, so we can uninstall this package if we like with r2pm-u. And this flag will basically execute the uninstall function from this package description. So as you see, it's very simple, and it fits very well with Unix style, but you will see that there is some limitations, and you will need to understand how this stuff needs to be resolved. And all that stuff is implemented already inside R2pm. So for example, let's say that we don't want to clone a repo, we just want to download a zip file. So let's grab for R2pm tarball. So there's this TGZ that basically contains routes. For example, like Ghidra. So you want to install Ghidra with R2pm, you can also do that. You need to basically specify that the URL for the package, which is the Ghidra URL, but then you need to specify the directory that will be exposed. And this is basically the base dir that it will be changing the directory, will run cd Ghidra Ghidra version before running the install, and then same goes for uninstall. And also other interesting stuff that you can see is that there is some use of variables here. There is make, there is r2pm prefix, there is sudo, and all that stuff is basically set by r2pm. So r2pm will be taking this script that is defined in the install target, and it will run system. So it will basically execute this in your system shell. What's the problem is that we need to know which is the environment that we have here. So for example, if we run export and we change that, we can r2pm-i or -ci, that doesn't matter because that's the package description, not the repo, and we'll get the execution of export. So you can see that all these variables are set. As you can see, there is a lot of r2pm environment sets. So if you want to understand where this is coming from, you can use the uppercase H. So r2pm minus uppercase H, and that will be enumerating all the environments that are set when running a package. You don't need to hack this package with the export thing. So in that case, we need to understand that, for example, we have a global plugin directory that this variable will be set when we use the -g flag. But if you don't use the -g flag, you will see that this environment sets to your local home plugin directory. So if you want to install a plugin for Radare, you will need to use this environment and then use cp. Then same goes for libdir, the database dir for the package database, the git dir, which is the place that all the plugins or packages are cloned or uncompressed. And then there is the git url, which means this is the location of the package database. The reason for that is because you can have your own package database, you can fork that, you can create your own database and your own packages. But hopefully you will be happy now to contribute to the main R2pm database. So let's go back to this, because now we see that we're executing a shell script. And what's the problem of the shell script? That they are not very portable. They can be problematic. So for example, when we use make in here, we are basically executing new make. So if you're running this in a BSD system, make will set to gmake. It won't be running make from, because that's the BSD make in that system. So R2pm will be checking for different paths in the environment and identify the location of all these binaries. Same goes for sudo. If there is a binary that depends on sudo install, it will be running it here. And this is basically checking for global. So this variable will be set when we use the -g flag. Okay, what else? Another problem of the shell scripts is that they don't run well on Windows. So how can we fix that? Actually, there is a way to specify that the package runs on Windows or not. So in this case, we have the Kai, R2frida, R2ghidra, and Yara. So this is the few packages that R2 supports on Windows, but you can it will be nice if we can basically extend the thing to support more packages. So let's check how that works. So the Kai package basically implements the git endpoint, the variable, the description of the package. There is another variable that specifies the dependencies, which means that it will be checking for the core binary in the path. But you can also add R2pm depends, and then specify the list of packages that depend on this one. So R2pm will be checking if these packages are installed and install them before. But let's go back to the Windows problem. So we have the shell scripts for basic Unix installation, and then we have a couple of more functions that are executed on Windows only. So as you can see, this is batch script. It will be executing this using system, but as long as Windows doesn't have a POSIX shell, you need to specify that this thing runs on Windows. So basically R2pm will try to resolve the install Windows function inside the R2pm package when you are running this on Windows. But if there is no Windows installation path, it will be basically fallback to the JavaScript implementation. So you can basically have this function that implements JavaScript code that will be executed as a fallback if you don't have a Unix installation path or a Windows installation path. The R2JS function is basically using the JavaScript runtime that is shipped inside Radare. So this means that you can basically execute JavaScript code without any single dependency for installing and uninstalling packages. Having access to all the environment, having access to all the commands inside Radare, and also all the system directories that you need to use. So now we have learned how to install packages, how to update the database, how to search for new packages and uninstall them, and how to write these packages. Now we'll see that what happens when there is a package that is installed, but this package needs to be updated. So for example, we want to update a plugin, and this plugin needs to know which package was coming from. So let's go to the R2ghidra plugin. We go to the core ghidra plugin.c, which is the file that implements this thing. Starting from the version 4.2 of Radare, this Radar plugin structure contains a package name field. This field specifies and tells Radare which is the package name that needs to be updated when you run this. So for example, if I uninstall the local share Radar plugins core ghidra, and then we do R2pm or pdg, we'll say that missing plugin, so you need to run this thing. The thing is that if we want to update that, R2 will be able to identify that the package needs to be updated and reload the plugin directly. And as long as the R2 keeps track of all the plugins that are loaded, it will be reloading that using the L command. The L command has a C subcommand that basically specifies all the core plugins. So you can enumerate the plugins that are loaded there, and then you can unload using the L minus and then L the library to reload the plugin. So you don't need to leave it to the shell and come back to install that. So let's go back to the R2pm database, and you can see that there is many other stuff. There is not just plugins for Radare. You can also find, for example, Yara. And if you want to install Yara, because sometimes it's kind of like a problem because you don't have some dependencies like auto tools and all that stuff, you can just install the package and that will be running and installing Yara inside your home. This will be a static linked build, and it won't depend on crypto because OpenSSL is usually kind of a problem. So if you don't want to build and pass all that stuff by your hand, you can just use the R2pm package for that. And as you can see, this is all the steps that you need to do in order to do that. And same goes for Windows. It will be just running PowerShell one-liners to load the thing. So how can we execute commands that are installed inside the R2pm prefix or the R2pm bindir? So you can see, for example, that there is the bindir thing and the prefix, and this stuff is basically the root directory that all the packages are installed. You have like a bin, include, lib, man, and share directories, exactly like in a user local or /user in any Unix system. So what we want to know is, instead of having to do things like that and then run the thing directly, like for example, we run ACR, instead of doing that, we can just run r2pm-r, which is another important command line flag that we want to use, and then the program and all the options, like for example, like this. As you can see, r2pm-r acts like npx, which is the same as npm run when you're running inside a node models /bin directory. And also, other interesting things is that r2pm-r is not just setting the prefix and the path environment, it's also setting the LD library path to load all the libraries directly from the r2pm prefix /lib directory. And yeah, I think that's all the stuff that I want to share for R2pm. I hope that you learned some new things and you can actually contribute porting more R2pm packages to Windows, as well as updating the ones that are already there. Finally, I will share some quick tips and explain how the thing works, like summarizing all the command line flags that I explained before. So explain that you need to run -ci to make a clean install. Sometimes your Git directory was messed up by local changes, so better use like -ci instead of just -i. If you want to uninstall the package, you have to use -u and then uppercase -u to update the database. There is also other interesting flags like the uppercase -h to check all the environment variables that will be set there. But also you can use -e, the package name, to edit the actual package to modify the installation script and mess with it until it's working. And when you do that, I will be happy if you make a pull request and contribute to the R2pm thing. Actually, there is many other stuff that will be interesting, like for example the time that basically specifies the commit time that is needed when you're running old versions of Radare, because this will be basically going back in time and cloning the packages from a specific date. So you can install old packages and old repositories if you pin the git commit on all the packages. And yeah, that's it. I hope that you'll learn some new things, and feel free to like and subscribe.